Well, golly gee, anyone who is tuning in right now, if you were anticipating like a really structured and like put together intro, I'm sorry to disappoint you because that is not what you're getting. You're going to get an authentic intro to the one and only Brad Hughes, our podcast with Brad today. We are so excited. I'm sure everybody has seen him. I'm sure like when people come up to you, Brad, it's like, wow, I see you everywhere on LinkedIn. CEO of Vision Dental Partners, total visionary, inspiration to all. And I don't think I'm too far off, but like LinkedIn star in a short period of time, short-ish, like you popped up like what, a month and a half ago. So I'm excited. I have questions. We all have questions. Brad Hughes, everybody. That was my intro.
Good. That was really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Killed it. Let's rock and roll.
I have questions, gentlemen. Do you guys, well, actually, I have questions. Brad, I'm sure you have lots of things to say, lots of things in the work, but I just want to know, my burning question is what I spend all day, every day on LinkedIn, and out of nowhere, little baby Brad Hughes shows up on LinkedIn one day. Like and you do all of the things that I encourage so many people to do on a daily basis. And I would love for you to tell people and for us to know, like, what happened? What is it? Obviously you want to build something. Like, I want to know all of the things, like what clicked.
This could be a 4-hour answer, so I'll try to make it as succinct as possible here.
Dr. Brad, you got some audience.
I love it.
We didn't have any more space. We got a big audience.
Yeah,
How funny.
she's poking her head in here. I like it. That's hilarious. Actually, that's hilarious. God, honestly, Sarah, I would say it's probably. Like the shortest answer I give you is like probably 12 years in the making. Number one, because I've always kind of felt like we just had some things to put out there, right? Like the experiences we've had, the wins, the losses. There's always just been a part of me that has said, where can I go? What can we do that will differentiate us from the other 2,000 dental groups? Because no matter how many taglines there are out there that say we're redefining dentistry, bullshit, you're not redefining dentistry. We all do the same things. We all do them within a few shades of gray. So what is the one thing that you can do when you're recruiting, you're trying to retain, you're out looking for acquisition opportunities? You're just quite honestly just trying to stand out a little bit amongst the and I don't mean this in a negative way. I say this with absolute pure love. But like the typical mold in the dental space, you just have to go be you because everybody else tries to fit into a little box. I've just never felt like I fit into that little box. I've been saying it for years and years and years and years. I just don't feel like I fit into the box. Good or bad, I know that there are thousands and thousands of people out there that say the exact same thing and feel the exact same way. I'm just okay sort of expressing that. I'm just okay sort of, hey, let's get on camera. Let's talk about the things that we do well. Let's talk about who we are. Let's talk about who we're not. And that's really all we're trying to do. And, build a little personal brand along the way, just around who I am. And that's it. I mean, that's the general gist of it. I think we spent a lot of time. We spent months before we really started posting anything. It was around, can Brad Hughes actually get on camera and be okay with being 100% authentically himself? And finally, I got to a point where 100%. It's going to rub some people the wrong way. I'm fine with that because I think that the community that we can build around people that are very like-minded are the people that I think sometimes don't always live in that same dental echo chamber. And those are the people that I really want to bring together and talk to and hang out with and communicate with and build relationships with over the next 10 to 20 years. Those are the people I'm trying to go grab because I don't always feel like I get to talk. I just felt like it was just hard to get those people together. It was hard to get those people in the same room, in the same text message chains and at the meeting. I want to get those people together, the like-minded people, because really ultimately that's why I'm doing this. I mean, dentistry's fine. Like, it's fun, right? Like I see patients 4 days a week. I enjoy that. I love the building of community. I love the leadership component. I love, I've been on meetings all day with like a few practice managers, goals for next year, incentives for them. We promoted a woman who's phenomenal into a practice manager role today. Like that's the shit that gets me going. And yeah, that leads us to now.
Love that. I love that. Was there, well, and your whole team, how have you gotten like Jason? And please tell me, her name is spelled so beautifully, Michal. How do I say her name?
Michal.
Okay. She's active. Lex is active. Like Brad, nobody is doing this. And I know this, I'm not trying to selfishly or shamelessly plug myself, but every day when I talk to people, they're so afraid, just like you said, of being themselves. What if I don't have anything important to say? What if nobody likes me? And these are amazing people. So I love the fact that you've gotten your team to do that. How did you do that? Because isn't one of them a CTO or a CFO? And I would imagine he probably doesn't love filming videos, but they all do great. Like how did you do that?
They're awesome. I think it's like everything else I do in life. Like it comes back to the leadership point, meaning what is actual leadership? And I don't want to oversimplify it because I know that there's 100, for every you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers. And some of them are going to be real softy and fluffy and it's rainbows and this and that. And then there's my definition, which is just lead the effing way and show them. And that's all I've tried to do is when we set out in, February, March of last year, probably even before that, probably a year ago when I'm like, that's what I want to go do. And then figured out kind of the how and then some strategy around this, that, and the other. And then I'm like, I'm going to go execute on this. And then they watched me execute and they're like, oh, he's on camera all the time. And then, he hired a content director. Like he's got a guy following him around with a camera. And then, a couple people actually watched some of the videos. They're like, they just kept doing it. And then Jason was like, I want to do that. And then, I'm like, hey, Lex. She's like, yep, I'm in. Michal was like, shit, but okay. And they're just doing it. There's no twisting of the arms. It's just let me lead the way. I'll go. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. It's no different than the doctors in my company, right? Like you want to produce multi-million-dollar a year. Just let me help you sort of pseudo-ishly replicate what I'm doing. And I can get you there. It's not going to happen next year if you're doing $1,050,000 this year, but there are steps and there are systems. Same with this. I've taken the steps. I've learned what to do, what not to do. Just go plug and play and do these things. And I think it's the same thing with video, with content creation. Because it's hard. It's hard to, this, Sarah, it's hard to, for most people, I genuinely love it. And I take hours every week, or actually I just carry a notebook. I should have it with me right now. I don't. We're just writing down hundreds of ideas. And usually it's just throughout the week of the shit that I screwed up. And I'm like, probably people shouldn't do that. And I need to go talk about that. And then the opposite would be the wins. But, I've said it on LinkedIn. I am surrounded by phenomenal people, whether it's at home, my wife and kids who are just wildly amazing, my team, my management team, incredible. I'm just blessed in that way. They genuinely are like-minded people. Now, they drive me insane because they're all wild fact finders and I'm a total quick start. So I'm go, 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 go. And they're like, well, but what if we just go at this speed? And I'm like, how about you go at that speed? But they're awesome. They kick ass.
Are you a 9 or a 10 quick start?
I was that's a good question.
I would imagine you're probably a 9 or a 10. I'm a 9.
Where are you? Yeah. See, that's why there's pure love there. And because I love quick starts. It's we band together. We have to.
For anyone on this call who's never taken the Colby or anyone who's never taken the assessment before, it's it took me a little while to get used to it. And I was like, okay, 4492, all right, cool. But the one thing I understood is a quick start is somebody who is research, screw that shit. I'm just going to hit the ground running. That I can do. We'll figure this shit out along the way. That's 100%.
Bingo. That's what we do.
I think I asked I could ask many, many LinkedIn questions, gentlemen. So I'm here for it, but I'm sure all of you guys have some smart shit you want to talk about. So
the next step is what we're doing at the practice level, which will be we're 12 video editors hired, content director. We're going all in at the practice level. We've started our own production company to where we will be scaling at the practice level now to build brand, edutainment, all the things between Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, probably not LinkedIn at the practice level, but some YouTube shorts. And we're going to blow that up. And, the objective and the goal is by the beginning of Q2 is 150 to 200 pieces of content per week between our 8 locations. So that's just the next wrinkle, right? Like it's just the next thing in progression. So like we've been working on that strategy, and then now we're going to start launching that here really soon. And then, my stuff will, there'll be some more fun things that we do with my own personal brand stuff. So what else?
Thank you for the bloopers, by the way. I'm a big fan. That was hilarious. I love your in the woods. You're just like, Happy Thanksgiving. That was good.
That was Stephanie. One of my hygienists was like driving away.
Yeah, Dr. Brad, I as a young graduate that just came out of dental school about close to 2 years now, the one thing that I found fascinating is how much time and dedication you put on the doctors. And I see on LinkedIn, you always talk with them one-on-one. And I just want to know, why is that so important to you as far as like leading those younger doctors? Like what impact have you seen those conversations that you're having with them? Like what are some of the impacts that you're seeing that it has on those young doctors?
God, it's everything. It's where my energy comes from. It's, and it's all going to sound like super cliche, but I mean every single word of it. And let me give you an example. So we started a practice in New Haven, Indiana, just kind of a little, it's not small, but kind of on the east side of Fort Wayne, Indiana, 2.5 years ago. That practice, our goal for next year is now to do $2 million, right? And the doctor in that practice started with us. It was a startup. We had not a single patient, put his full trust in me. We're very aligned in terms of mindset. I give full credit to him. I mean, he and I have talked a lot. We've put a lot of time, energy, and money into his growth, into his development. And now, February 1st, he'll become a 30% partner in that practice. And that's important to me. He's 33 years old. It's important to me for him, for his family, for the practice, for the team. That's everything. To be able to sit there and to give these guys, the men and the women, the opportunity to invest in a company that's going to continue to grow and that they fully believe in. Because initially, we don't know with younger doctors, right? Or with any doctor. I shouldn't even say younger. Any doctor, we don't know on day one. Are they going to work out? Are they good? Are they not good? But when they align, and that, like, the opportunity that the reason I'm building this is the growth opportunity, personally, professionally, and financially for our team members. And it'd be a hell of a lot easier for me to just go produce $3 million a year, play golf 3 days a week. Believe me, there's more money in that. There just is. And for anybody who has grown a group and they're at our spot, like, they get it. It is fully for them, and it's fully for the skill set development. Those conversations are important. The onboarding process, it genuinely is where my energy comes from. The growth, the ability to watch them make a mistake or two and come back 6 times better 6 months later is just awesome. It's awesome.
Follow up to that question in terms of entrepreneurship and what you, as a 3rd generation dentist, I believe you're a 3rd generation dentist, and someone who's got almost 20 years of experience. How has your family's legacy in dentistry influenced your approach to leadership, to entrepreneurship? And then the second part of that question is, what are some of the lessons or values that you maybe your father or maybe your grandfather have guided you through that kind of decision making? How you do your decision making every day?
Yep. And those are really good questions. And I think probably 2 things. I would say, number one, the biggest numero uno reason that I went into dentistry without a single person in my life leading me down that path, ever even asking me. Like, I've told this story 974 different times. Like, my dad had zero idea what I was even now, maybe this is like poor fathering, I don't know. But like, had zero idea what I was even majoring in as we were driving down to Indiana University to drop me off my freshman year. Zero idea. It was just like, whatever you want to do. When I told him on that car ride down, as I'm like figuring out how to do laundry from my mom, because I'm like, shit, like, I've never even like washed a shirt, and I'm like 18 years old. This is kind of, now that I look back, I'm like, damn, my parents they really should have taught me more. But, I think the biggest factor, and the main reason I went into it is because I saw from my dad, who was the master of relationship building. And I was never even around, like I was around the practice some, sure, like I grew up around it, but it was at my Little League games. It was at my basketball games. It was at Pizza Hut on a Friday night. It was at the grocery store on a Sunday afternoon. And like people knew who he was. And he knew who everybody was. And I'm like, this is amazing. And for like the shy kid, who like to me, that was so far outside of my realm. I was like, that's what I want to do. That was so fascinating to me because it was a skill set that honestly I hadn't developed yet. It didn't come easy for me. And so I was incredibly enamored by that. Now, the flip side is what my dad didn't teach me and I've had to unlearn. And I love my dad to death, but his ability to have candor and to approach tough conversations was just shit poor. And so I also learned that. And I've had to work my way through that. And I would say it took me a while. My early years of leadership and practice were very much shaped by that. So he really taught me the relationship building side, but it was almost like it went too far because it was like, everything's always awesome. Yeah, sometimes it's not, Dad, and sometimes we need to be able to address that. And so those are probably the two biggest things that shaped me. And one I saw and learned from a very young age and was around it at all times. The other one I've kind of had to unlearn a little bit. But once I realized that, like once that clicked and I'm like that, that's not my style and it's okay. Like that's somebody else's style. Remove the bias, get over it, learn now to go be better at this. And so I was really, really shaped by both of those. From my grandfather, it's so funny. I can remember in the my dad graduated from the IU dental school in 1980. And I can remember in like 85, I was like 5, 6 years old. My grandfather was just giving my dad so much shit because he had hygienists, he's like, I just can't believe that. Like, what is this? Because my grandma was my grandpa's only employee. Her only phone would ring, she'd run and go get it from assisting. So just different. Every level. Now dentistry is run by MBAs, right? Like so, the difference each generation has been really wild, and I'm down for that. My dad, who was still practicing until about 2.5 years ago, this isn't his era. Like he doesn't want to do this, right? This isn't his game. There's still an incredible need for people like him, and he's an awesome dude, but he doesn't want to be part of the MBA run. And I'm not an MBA, like I'm just figuring it out. I'm in the school of hard knocks. Like my MBA is like the daily grind and the shit we go through. But
may I ask a quick question?
I was shaped by those
thank
things
you so much
immensely.
for that. 3 of us in this room, we are not dentists, and we are still in love with the field. Like dentistry, I got my introduction to dentistry like about 2 years back out of a problem that I saw in the field, and then I started building a solution for it. And then I met amazing people, one after another. And I literally right now, like I'm just in love with it, that I was just like, whatever I have to do to stay in this field, I'll do it. What would you do if you were not a dentist? You were in my shoes, or like I know Sarah also, I don't know how she got into, I know that she was big in marketing in other areas and then she got into dentistry. But what would you do if you were not a dentist and then you wanted to provide value to this field?
It's a great question. Let me bring that to, and by the way, Sarah, you had a post the other day about some of this. I have 138,000 unopened emails on my phone right now, by the way. We were talking about emails and how I get 110 a day. 138,000 unopened emails in my Gmail. I was gonna send that to you the other day. I was like, I'll just wait till we're on here. 130. So just go. I mean, first of all, dude, like approach every conversation exactly that way, and you will crush it, because that is the opposite of how most people approach it. And so, like, no matter what you're doing, just show everybody the value that you're bringing, because there's a lot of this along the way with everybody, like from dentists. Like, I mean, dentists come to us, hey, we'd like to affiliate with you. And they're like, hey, we're doing this number, like, and their practice is literally like almost losing money, but they feel like they're sitting on a gold mine. Like, there's just a lot of ego in dentistry. There's a lot of ego in every profession. And that's fine. Like, I'm not singling out dentistry. Just like, if you can show people how much you love it, because by the way, that's the reason most dentists by the time they're 40 are burned out, is because they don't love it. It's not the workload. It's not I just genuinely don't believe you can get burned out on something you love. Like, did Kobe ever get burned out on basketball? I doubt it. Did good Tiger Woods ever get burned out on golf? He might have taken some time off here and there like everybody needs, but I don't think he was burned out. He fucking loved it. So like, you keep that passion and just go keep executing and show the value that you can bring. That's the game right there. Like, you hit it on the head. You love what you're doing. And that's all anybody wants to work with. In my opinion, that's all anybody wants to work with, are people who actually love it. That's all I'm ever looking for.
Dr. Brad, as you know, I work for a few DSOs, and the DSO market, amazing for dentistry. They provide ton of values, accessibility to patients, but the one thing that I found across the DSOs, that if the DSO is run by bad leadership, that ship is going to sink faster than you can ever imagine. And there was a lot of time. That's why I kind of separated myself. I'm like, this is not something I want to be a part of. Why do you think Vision Dental Partner is different in that perspective? Why do you think that the vision that you have, you're like, I'm going to grow this, I'm going to do all these things, I can see where it's going to go. So why do you think that you guys are separating yourself from the rest of the industry as far as your leadership style, the way you guys are doing things? Why do you think that you guys are so different in that perspective?
Yeah, I can't speak for anybody else because I don't know the inner workings of their company. Like, there's good and there's bad. There's good and there's bad at the private, I hate to say the private practice level. Like, I don't even know what that means anymore. Like, we'll just call it dentistry as a whole, right? Because sometimes people label us as like corporate, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm a dentist who owns a company, but I'm a corporate dentist. Like, okay, I don't care if it's because there are dentists who are still working at 71 years old that never made any money. Is that any different than a poorly run DSO, right? I mean, there's good and there's bad at every level. Single practice, $200 million company, and everything in between. What separates us, I think, again, we're not redefining dentistry. We're doing the same things. We're just going to do it in a very, very, very authentic way. And that means that we are not for everybody. And that means that not everybody will like me or us, but that means that I want to go attract the ones that do. And for those people, I will go to bat for them, and I hope vice versa. And again, it goes back to the relationship side of things. Like, that's where my energy comes from. And I just want to build relationships with those people over the next 20 years and hopefully my lifetime. I'm only 44, so I got some time left here. Ultimately, I think it's just an authenticity around it. I think that's the only way, like, when we really talk about brand, and, Sarah could probably talk about brand for 12 hours, but like, I genuinely, and not everybody will agree with this either, which again, fine. From a personal brand standpoint, I just feel like I have to be 100% me. That's it. And, I'm the first to admit, during 2020, 2021, those COVID times, it was almost kind of easy. That was probably the easiest time ever in dentistry because like nobody else had anything to do. So like patients were like flooding in, and I admittedly got a little soft. I had to kind of come out of that. I'm like, this is not me. I don't feel good about this. And I say soft in the sense of like, I don't feel like I was pushing as hard for my team. I don't feel like I was being as accountable as I needed to in every aspect of life, like in every single avenue. And, I feel like I'm at my best and I'm the most happy and I'm having the most fun when I'm just like, this is me. That's it. And, I'm okay with that. So what will separate us is just the people. Sarah mentioned Jason and Mikkel and Lex and myself, and Mike is on there in the business development procurement space. We're just going to be us, and the objective is to attract people who are very like-minded, and I think there's a ton of them out there.
Doug, we probably didn't ask you this question. We should have asked earlier. Kind of walk us through, like, how did you go from that one practice to like multiple practices? How did you essentially, like, when was the turning point for you to say, okay, I'm ready to have now 2, 3, 4, 5? Like, when was that turning point that you're like, all right, I'm ready to take on these responsibilities? So like, what was the turning point for you to say, now I'm ready? Like, I just want to know when that switch kind of turned on your mind that you're like, all right, I'm ready to open a second and multiple practices.
Yeah. The flip really for me, or the switch kind of went off 2013. That was my 6th year in practice. And, I really enjoy and like dentistry. I love the patients. I love all stuff. But for me, I could feel that entrepreneurial side just like oozing out. And I'm like, I need to do more. I need to do a little something over here. And then I'm like, and then it was like, but instead of like, and I need to go acquire another practice, it was like, but Hughes, I just felt like I needed to get my mindset right. I needed to get my Hughes Dental Group in Leo, Indiana. I needed to get that built to the point that I felt really good about it. And so I set out from there. I said, we're going to go 3X this practice and then we're going to go. And that was like the number, and that was like the thing. And that's what we did. And that was with the help of Mikkel and a bunch of other really just, and by the way, that was like Mikkel starting with me 6 weeks after open heart surgery. I don't know if anybody, her story is just like ridiculous, but this is, so we tripled the practice and I'm like, let's go do this. And that was into like 2016, 2017, but I didn't acquire my second practice until 2019. And then we acquired a couple more around 2020. And then it was like, oh shit, like two practices was kind of easy. 3 was kind of easy. 4 was like, oh crap. And then 5 was like, huh. 6 was like, what are we doing here? And, 7 and 8 just kind of came along, and then acquired the Atlanta practices, which scaled us up to 12. That was a colossal mistake that I lost a bunch of money on, but we took a step back to go down to 8 because I sold those off because I had a really bad partner. That was my own red flags that I missed, didn't do the due diligence. Again, like-mindedness matters, but you live and you learn. So, we want to do 4 or 5 acquisitions in 2025. We have the foundation for that. I had no desire to do any acquisitions over the previous 2 years. We're ready to go. But it was 2013. I set out and I said, I have no idea how long this will take me. And I don't even know if I can do it, but I'm going to triple the practice that we're in. And we did. And full credit to the team. I mean, they like kicked ass. And then 2019 acquired a second. We've just kind of gone from there.
How did you deal with that setback? That seems like a very challenging time. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I beat the snot out of myself mentally for a while. But in the long run, I almost like I did. I beat myself up. I was just in the thick of it. I was putting a ton of cash into it. It was almost like 4 de novos at the same time. So it was a ton of cash influx. It was and then, we had a rollover partner of 20% in those 4 practices that just didn't align. And like that's okay. So it was either keep putting cash in and get to the point of profitability, but I was draining my management team. I was putting strain on everybody else. And I said, I don't want to do it. Cut my losses and move on. And, I'm okay. I'm glad, like give me the gut punch, give me the roundhouse kick to the face. I took it. I took my bruises. I took my lumps, and like, I just need that every now and again. Weirdly, now maybe like I don't necessarily want to do that again, but like I need some L's every now and again, just that like couple of those right hands or left hands to the face. You need them to just stay grounded. You just got to have those things. That's how you build. But I beat myself up. Let's be honest. Like it was either going to define us or it was going to break us. And I think the moment it was funny. I was walking out of the gym one morning at like 6:15 a.m. on a Thursday, and I took like 3 steps out of the gym, and it was like this. I just went, I'm done with these. I had no idea. I was just like, that's it. It was enough cash. Like we've put and by the way, we doubled their collections in a year from when we took over. I mean, we were on the right path. Like this wasn't like, because some of my team members were like, oh, we feel like we failed you or something. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you guys, we were like, these things were doing fine. We would have been great with these, but you got to choose people and culture over everything else. That is everything.
So Dr. Brad, when you went and acquired those practices in Atlanta, just an advice to somebody like me to not make the same mistake. Like you said that you didn't do your due diligence. Like what do you think it went wrong? Do you feel like you just did? Just want to kind of ask you that.
Yeah. I just when we talk about core values, right? Like, our 4 core values being action, will to win, bring the fire, close the gap. And we preach them, we talk about them, we genuinely look for team members that align. And I was up in Indiana, kind of skirting around the state. I had a few meetings about 2 weeks ago. We were meeting with 3 different doctors that were looking to potentially affiliate and partner with us. One of them stood out incredible, which, we've got an LOI, in fact, that meeting's probably going on right now, with Mike and this particular doctor, who, by the way, is a phenomenal dude. And it's just so obvious. It's so clear and obvious that he aligns with those core values. And it was so obvious that Dr. X in Atlanta did not. So like, where was I, right? Like, and it seems so obvious and so clear, but in the moment I got a little wrapped up in the sexiness of like 4 practices and like, we can go make these 4 practices in a $9 million territory and we can do that. You just kind of lose sight of what was the most important thing. The one most important thing was core value alignment. I regurgitate it and then I regurgitate it more. There's a reason I talk about it a ton, because there's nothing more important. And that would be the biggest one. Like, you can do a financial due diligence, like that's easy. Like that's simple. Do they align or do they not? And I think where a lot of problems arise in the DSO space is Dr. XYZ sets out, they take the biggest number they can get and then realize a year down the road that might not have been the best fit for the next 6 years of my life. And I think it causes a lot of problems. And I don't want that either side. I don't want it. I want the doctors that are in our company I want them to say in 10 years, it was the best decision I ever made. And I hope, like, Dr. Ken Moore and Create a Smile in Bloomington, Indiana, was a great acquisition 2 years ago. And he's a great guy. We've grown the practice from 2.7 to well into the 3 millions, and he's doing great. Like, my hope is that it's like when he's done in 10 years, he's like, I'm so glad. The relationship we've built. I love sitting down with him every 3 months and just shooting the shit, talking business, running through this, that, and the other. It's just fun. And we've got a good relationship, and we do with all of our doctors. And ultimately, that's what works. Lack of core value fit, it just doesn't work. So, like, no matter what side you're on, buy side or sell side, you're going to make way more money if you find people that you align with as opposed to just the best offer.
So when you're kind of going through and trying to acquire those practices or the people, and you said like core values, like what are some of the things that, you look for, or kind of like say, okay, this person, because sometimes that's the hardest part, right? Finding those right people. So what are some of the things that you feel like, okay, like this clicks or this doesn't? Because to this day, I don't even know, like, hey, is this the right company for me to work for? Is this the right people I want to be around? Like, what are some of those things that needs to be paying attention to? Or what are some of the things you look for when you acquire those people?
I mean, do you ever really know? Not until you're into, I mean, but I would say, I've become very good at my, in my elder age of 44, I've become very good at developing the ability to read people. I think I've developed that skill set through learning to get very good at case acceptance, influencing patients. Like, you start to just be able to read the body language. You can start to weed through the bullshit a little bit easier. And that now gets into some of these dentists. Like when I was up there 2 weeks ago, just again as an example, when we were done with our conversation, he was lit on fire. Like literally he might as well have been sitting on one of Elon Musk's rockets, because he was like ready to go. And I, like that, you can't fake that. You could see it on his face. You could see the excitement level. He's like, holy shit, I've never been more excited because I finally see a path to double my practice. I can't do it myself. I love the support that you guys can bring to me. You've done it. I mean, you could just see it in his eyes. That's what I'm looking for. That's it. If it's, and it's no different than if Jason's out recruiting and, and somebody comes into an interview. I think Jason posted today on LinkedIn, like, the way to blow an interview is to just start out by asking the question, like, what benefits do you bring to me? It's like the worst, right? Like, okay, like there needs to be some mutual, there needs to be beneficial things on both sides here. But, if somebody comes in and says, well, what do you think the multiple is going to be that you're going to offer me? It's like, yeah, you ain't it for me either, bro. Or, Dr. X. So I want to see them freaking lit up.
Bit of a question.
Because that lights me up, by the way. Like, I left there, I didn't sleep for like 3 days. I'm like, let's do this. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Good insight. Kind of looking ahead, how do you see Vision Dental partners adapting to changes in the dental industry, like advancements in tech and AI, and obviously a shift or potentially shifts in patient expectations? What's your strategy in kind of trying to stay ahead of that dynamic for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess at a very macro level, because I think, I mean, we just need to incorporate the things, right? Like, we use Overjet AI, we're There's some things we're doing in revenue cycle management, as we work with some different platforms that'll bring in some AI technology. So I just think you just need to just be there. Like, I don't know that I'm not probably the guy who's gonna be like, we have to be at the forefront of everything. Cause I think we're doing exactly what we should be doing right now. And I think we should, and we've incorporated it well. And I love that, the technology that we're utilizing is friggin' awesome, right? I think I know the American Dental Association just partnered with Pearl. So who knows what happened? That's a whole nother story. I didn't realize the ADA was picking and choosing winners here. So I won't go down that road here yet, but that's but I think from an AI standpoint, we've got to be in the game, because you're right. It's unbelievable. Just be in the game. Don't wait. Well, someday no, it's freaking here. And so we're incorporating it. I think from a marketing standpoint, I'm actually trying to be a little ahead of the game. And that's where, I preach it's brand over everything, because Google will shut you down tomorrow if you give them even just the slightest reason to do it. I've lived it. I've experienced it. And then what? I think Google, with ChatGPT and some of the other AI platforms, Google is not going to be the number one search engine 4 to 7 years from now. And then what? So you better freaking have a brand, and you better have a way to where are the eyeballs at? I think when I look at 2012, 2013, as I was doing TV commercials, and I had a dentist that lived next to me that wouldn't even look at me. He'd be out mowing the yard, and he was like, that asshole's on TV. We're dentists. We don't go on TV. We're more professional than that. He's like an attorney. I'm like, bro, I'm going to go triple my practice. 69 years old and won't retire for 4 more years. Just saying, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying there's definitely a mindset. I just wanted to be where were the eyeballs? At that time, they were on TV. We did some radio. I'm just trying to go and get attention where the eyeballs are at. Everybody's heard Gary Vee talk about attention. It's exactly what we're trying to do. So from a marketing standpoint, I think we need to be at the forefront there. Patient expectations, they've shifted. We've become much more insurance driven. You can still combat that with brand. I see it. I live it, but you better be good at it. And if you're relying on Google click ads to create brand, it ain't going to happen. And if you think your website's going to create brand, it's not going to happen. You need patients to be coming to you because you've already built a relationship with them. And then it becomes however you're doing that. My idea of doing that is where their eyeballs are, which is on their phone on different platforms. And they need to come in, and they need to not worry about MetLife or Delta Dental or United Healthcare. And they need to come in and say, you're the dude who's going to do this. And that's why they're there to see me. I fully understand that that's not the case everywhere, but Google Ads still has a place, but things are shifting quickly.
Doctor, I have a quick question. As Milad was picking your brain on your business spirit, I have a question about your mindset and basically your entrepreneurial spirit. As you keep moving along from the time that you graduated from dental school until you had your first practice, you acquired the second one, third one, until right now that you have 8. After you reach a certain success point that, you've achieved something hard, and then in order to reach the next level, you have to put in a lot more work, but already you're satisfied because you already got something. You got more financially stable, professionally you grow, your network got bigger. How do you not get satisfied at that level and you keep going to the next one? Because that's something that I've struggled with. I'm struggling with even right now. And I'm sure every entrepreneur goes through that.
Yep. I believe I have literally, I made a post about this. I believe every single day I wake up, I have absolutely nothing. Every day, I have convinced myself I have freaking zero, and I have to go earn it right now, every day. That's why, admittedly, Saturdays and Sundays occasionally drive me crazy, because I'm like, what am I doing today? I have zero, and I'm not doing anything. And I know I'm labeling success in a financial sense. So I'm saying that, I still have a wife and twin 5-year-olds girls that need my attention, right? I'm still dad, and I'm still, but I literally have convinced myself, and I used to do this by not looking at my bank account. I would go 6 months and I would convince myself there was zero in it, and I wouldn't look at it. Now, it's a little easier to do that with one practice, because it's just a little bit now I'm going through P&Ls monthly for between our real estate holdings and our company, the stuff. So it's different. So context matters in that regard, but I still have variations of that, but I've convinced myself, I swear to God, I have convinced myself every single day I have zero. And that's how I approach every day. I get up, I throw on clothes, and we get after it. And so I feel like I've done, I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, I've worked with some unbelievable people. I mean, geez, when it's a Tuesday night at 10:30 and you're having conversations with your HR director about different things, and he's still like, dude, I got another hour of work, and you're like, huh? Like, they're inspiring. I am incredibly grateful, but I've convinced myself every day I have zero. And that's how I go forward every day.
A simple question there: how do you convince yourself? Because it's kind of hard. I used to be in the investment world, and every day you look at how much you have and how much profit you're gonna make on top of it. And after some point in business, you also get into that role. Like, you can't just keep making money by, seeing patients and being a dentist. You have to make investments. So how do you do that? And how do you use that to bring yourself to the desk in the morning?
I mean, I think you just have to play the game, right? Like, I think you just have to go, okay, like, I'll bring Kobe up again. I mean, if you believe what Tim Grover says, that, the Lakers win an NBA title and Kobe's telling Tim Grover, like, great, see you at the gym tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. You're like, holy shit. Like, this dude just played an 82-game season, went through the playoffs, has now won back-to-back NBA titles, and he's like, I'm having a couple drinks tonight, I'm in the gym tomorrow morning. I just think you have to convince yourself. There's probably nuance to that, and there's context to that. It's going to be a little different for everybody. I just don't compare. I think you also have to not compare yourself to anybody else, right? Because if you're comparing yourself to somebody who financially has less than you, you're always going to feel good and complacent about it. So, like, I just don't, but I also think, like, don't judge yourself either. Like, if you feel okay and I think you, like, sometimes people confuse, like, being grateful for where they're at with, like, complacent with where they're at. Like, you're probably not super complacent, but you're probably like, I'm kind of excited that I was able to overcome some things, to have some wins. Like, that's great. For me, I'm always like, okay, we net won last week, like 2 W's to 48 L's. I'm like, great, that's good. Let's go win again next week. And it's just week in, week out. But I've literally, maybe that's a really bad answer. Maybe I'm not explaining it well, but I think you're just going to have to find a way. For me, like, everybody's like, I need my why. I'm like, my why is that every day I wake up and I'm like, you have shit, Hughes, and you have a family to support, and you have 2 big ass chips on your shoulder for things that you need to go. You got people to prove wrong. Go do it.
Yeah, totally. Another thing I used to do once was you kind of fall in love with the game, not the results. Like, no matter what results you get, you just keep going. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Another question I have, going back to your personal brand story. There is this gentleman that we're working with. He has a DSO. He has, I think he just acquired 2 more practices. He has now 12 practices. And a problem that he currently has is he doesn't want to practice as a dentist anymore. But his personal brand is now allowing him to do that. Like, there are so many patients that come to him and they're like, I want to see this like specific dentist. I'm not going to anyone else. How are you dealing with that? You're working a lot in personal branding. Like, have you thought about that later down the line?
That's the hard piece, right? That's where, like, at 3 practices, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad, because, like, I can kind of manage, I can kind of keep the team the same, and I can use my best people to sort of manage all 3 practices. And then, like, 4 and 5, you need to start building a management team. 6, 7, and 8, you start to enter that dark tunnel where your margins get a little thin because you're adding people and team and management people. You're having to take a management, fee out to start to pay for the team. I would say everybody's going to have a different story. I don't have an exit plan. I've exited. Obviously, I practiced in Indiana for 11 years. Now I practice in South Carolina. So I know how hard it was the first time. When I left there, it was hard because I'm like, shit, my dad started this practice in 1980. And here came Brad Hughes, another Hughes, in 2007. These patients aren't going to want to see anybody. Well, once the ego kind of, like, went off my shoulders, and I realized actually they're fine. I knew the practice wasn't going to do what it was doing when I was there. That's just math. That's just simple math. Like, it is what it is. Don't judge yourself because your practice goes down 15 or 20% because you're an all-star provider has brand, produces at a high level. Just, get over the ego. And I'm not saying he has that. I'm just saying, in general, in a very macro sense, my own experience, because I'm going to have to do it again here in South Carolina, not anytime soon, but I will do it again. The ego's got to go away. Understand that there's 160,000 other dentists out there who can do the work, and you might lose a few patients, whatever. The numbers might go down a little bit, but guess what? You're company needs you elsewhere. And those numbers will go up probably to offset it by an even bigger percentage. But it's fun to feel needed. Nobody else can do what I do in that practice. Nobody else can do that. Okay.
Elad, are you having that feeling right now?
You know, I did in Indiana when I left Hughes Dental Group in Leo, 100%. Now, no.
Well, so you asked me if I had to learn from Dr. Brad. He said you got to find a place to check your ego. So I found a spot in my office to hang my ego code once in a while.
It's hard. It's hard because we all want to feel needed. Like I did that like in Indiana in 2017, 2018, as I was like transitioning down to here in South Carolina, I understood. It was like, you know, they'd call me and they'd be like, hey, there's a patient here who like only wants you to do this crown prep. And I was like, oh, of course. Get over it, Hughes. Like, dude, what a freaking gross. You know, like there are other reasons, especially if you have 12 practices, there are people in that company who probably beg for time from that particular doctor. And, you know, I think if they want to go to, he could probably continue to do what he's doing at 12. But if he wants to get to 22, now's the time. Now's the time.
Dr. Brad, before we let you go, I do want to ask you one thing. You know, you've been in the industry, as you know, sometimes we talk about this a lot. It's like there's such a huge gap in dentistry, especially for us that we graduate. I mean, I understand. I've been through it. You know, it took me a few times to get in, apply for dental school, get in. They don't teach you nothing about business. You come out, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. A lot of time that's frustrating. You know, I had this conversation with Sarah. I said, you know, I felt lonely. I felt stressed when I came out of dental school. For the first 6 months to 8 months, I had no idea what I was doing because, you know, you're in dental school, you have faculties, you have a staff, you have support, you have all of these things and you feel good. You're like, man, I'm good. But when you come out, you're like, man, I'm by myself sitting in this room and I have 4 people that I have to answer to, the staff, the management, the this, the that. And you start feeling isolated and lonely, you know? So what is the advice that you can give a guy or a girl that's coming out of dental school that they want to feel the same thing that they feel when they're in a school? Maybe not similar feeling, but like, what is the advice that you can give them for them to like not feel isolated, for them to take that stress off of them maybe?
Yeah, damn, that's such a good question. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Boy, you know, it is hard. Like, I think we underplay and underestimate because everybody sees like, you know, dentist is always ranked at like the top of Forbes magazine's most like best jobs on earth. And you're like, this is hard though. It's hard. I mean, you know, you've got team, to your point, you come out of school and you're like, I'm just trying to I've done, and by the way, you've spent $300,000 to go to dental school. And by the way, I got waitlisted 1 year too. So thanks, Indiana University. And yeah, that's one of my chips, by the way. Like I got a lot to prove to those folks. And, you know, it's like, there's just a lot. You pay $300,000 to go to school and you've done 2 root canals. Like, so like $150,000 per root canal. That's awesome. And then you're trying to just figure it out. You've got a team that's expecting some level of authority and leadership. And you're like, but it's been all about me for 8 years. It was all about you. Grades, DAT, interview, blah, 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 blah. It was all about you. Now it's not. And I made that mistake plenty. I made it about me instead of making it about team early on. They've got to, just like acquisition opportunities, it's almost like it's the same game. You know how like when we're young, we're like in diapers and then we get old and we go into diapers. Kind of the same way with like with in the dental space. Early on, you got to find the company that you're going to get that support. You just have to seek it out. And I talk to young dentists and they're like, well, we only thought we could join big groups, like these massive Gen 1s, Aspens, Heartlands. I'll throw like, you know, some of the other ones in there, but like, we didn't even know that some of you, like groups like you were even hiring dentists right out of school. And I'm like, yeah, we probably do a poor job of getting access to dental schools. We do a poor job. And some of it's not just us not trying, by the way. You know, I think there's some things involved that I don't know how much. Anyway, so you got to find the right company. So early on, just like we talked about on the acquisition side of things, you got to find the right fit. Early on, you got to find the right fit because that's the only way you're going to get support. Like my phone sits out for me between patients. Like I tell my doctors, I have about 3 or 4 different platforms for them to reach out to me on. You can call me, you can text me. You can use Voxer. You can email me. You can, I mean, there's multiple other ways to get a hold of me. Do it and do not hesitate. I bring them to my practice. I spend time with them. I go to their practice. You know, we've got a director of operation who's going to come into their practice, who has worked for, you know, with me for 12 years now. You know, we're going to have, you know, we have practice managers that come down and spend time in my office. So again, the reason I love practicing is because I get to show that everything I'm doing is exactly what I'm coaching. Is the things I coach you on are exactly what I'm doing. There is no deviation. And I think that's important. I don't want to lose sight of that. Like being an operator is still really important to me. So it's just fit. Like it sounds so simplistic, but I think it's hard because it's easy when a group comes in at your dental school and talks and brings you pizza or takes you to dinner and buys you, you know, a steak and a beer or a steak and a vodka soda. And it's like, oh, this is great. Do your homework. Like really, really make sure you know what that group is doing to really support you, because we're not all created equally.
That's why it's so great that you talk about all of these things in such a public forum, because I'm so hopeful that people will see this. And of course, am I selfishly over here like, well, now if people see that Brad's using LinkedIn and that it's actually a freaking good place to be, maybe people will start using it and listening to me and maybe even hiring me, which is not even the most important part to me. I just want people.
And they should.
Well, I want people to be happy. And I feel like culture has been a huge buzzword for so long. And I think right now we're just starting to even scratch the surface. So Brad, thank you for making this an important thing. Thank you for your entire team talking about this in front of everybody. I mean, you guys building your brand is going to help employee retention, associate retention, people, just like you said earlier, there are certain people, y'all, my company logo is a unicorn. If somebody doesn't like a unicorn, they're probably not going to like me. And I put that out there. And if they don't want to and they don't approach me because of it, I saved myself some damn time. So I love that you're doing that. And just thank you, because it's, you know, for leaders and people who don't feel like they have something important to say, I really think that they look at you and your team and think, I can do that. So thank you.
100%. No, I think the most fun part is exactly this. It's like the conversations with you all, or, you know, it's just all of it. You know, when Sarah shows up in your comment feed, you know, it's like, this is going to be a good day. You know, like it just, there's just a real community around, I think, like-minded individuals that want to have some fun, work really hard, you know, and culture is a very macro way of just saying, I think, just similarity and like-mindedness. And that's it. That's all any of us wants. And that's what makes it fun. And I think that's what inspires us all. And those are the relationships we want to build. And, you know, I'm not for everybody. Like there are Purdue fans out there, like gross human beings. And, you know, that's okay. But genuinely, like I appreciate all of you guys for, immensely.
Yeah. Dr. Brad, I just wanted to say before I let you go, you know, as a young doctor out of dental school 2 years, I follow your path. I'm truly inspired by what you do. You know, this conversation and every day just on LinkedIn, looking at what you do. I hope that I grow up and be like you one day.
You'll be far ahead of me, my man.
No.
Trust me. You already are.
Thank you.
From my second year to your second year, dude, you're killing it. So just keep going. Like I'm the more I get to know you, I'm so proud of what you got going on. So and I'm grateful to know you and blessed.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. Please come back and, you know, give us more advice.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime, y'all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Pleasure meeting you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
You too.